All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole, Season 10, Episode 28. Number 316 overall, for those of you keeping score at home. Your faithful host, Ken Arlen here, coming to you on an overcast Friday afternoon at South Eugene at Eagle's Nest 2, Studio B. Ooh, yes, we are TGIF in it. Thank all of you folks tuning in again once, as always. Like and subscribe to either our YouTube channel or Spotify. Definitely some big things happening in the Foxhole as far as FTIN FX Media is concerned. New scenes getting ready to drop. I think we're going to try to put the finishing touches on that. Some other folks have committed. Got a big interview that's in the works that I'm really excited about. I promise. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun summer. All right, we thank the folks at Rode, Zoom, Potenzic, the cable makers, yeah, the light makers, all that kind of stuff. Tiny product makers, all the things that make the content creators out there effective and successful, or not. All right, let's get rolling with some open face for episode 316. Let's get to it. Well. The big story this week, obviously, is Jackson Dart. We mentioned it the other day on Aftershocks. Yeah, number 46. Check that out if you can. Jackson Dart and this whole thing with Abdul Carter. And today, apparently, or yesterday, Dart addressed the team and Carter wasn't there. And then Carter came out with one of those, I get, as long as I stand on what I stand on, you can stand on what you stand on. Meaning this whole thing, which you have to wonder in Abdul Carter's case, do we really clout chasing and brand building? Because otherwise, the point of this was, I mean, we know this is a weird time of the year. And by the way, for it being kind of a weird, quiet time, there was so much content that I could have talked about. I had to stop at some point just, so I could do the regular show. I got still so many things I could talk about and probably will bleed into next week if I can remember it. But this thing with Dart and Abdul Carter, it's just so ridiculous. And everybody from Dan Lebitard, the Cuban militants on that platform, everybody has something to say. And it was a whole thing to do about nothing. Like, well, gee, if they lose, I go, they've been losing a lot since they last won a Super Bowl with Eli. They had a moment or two with Danny Dimes, but we're acting like, well, gee, if they go back into the toilet, which they're trying to get out of, it's surely not going to be because Mr. Dart introduced Donald Trump. And like everybody's taking the high road, the athletes, which a lot of times they don't because, they have their own narcissism and fame and brands to build to deal with. But it seems like the athletes are the only ones who are sensible. Everybody else in the discourse has lost their freaking minds. Because, like many things, this isn't a lot about nothing. And if the Giants are successful, it's not going to be because they bonded over this. And if they suck, it's because they've continued to suck. It's just now John Harbaugh's there. They probably won't suck because John Harbaugh usually gets results. That's just the thought. So you see how they had the commissioners summit on, I think it was Pat McAfee this week. I should have tuned in, but it's really hard, at least for me. I don't know how it is for you, but watching ESPN shows, it just, yeah. I mean, I can watch, pardon the interruption still. I can watch SVP and, our girl Nicole Briscoe. But after that, it's kind of rough. ESPN's a tough watch. And so I missed this commissioner summit, and I guess they were asking him about Commissioner Silver, that is, about flopping and tanking, and everybody kind of dancing around the question of officiating when it's like, Gee whiz, if you have the commissioners of the room, if talk about this in the colleges, if they're trying to come up with a fix, y'all should universally come up with some kind of standard, maybe some kind of institution. It ain't like you're making enough money. I mean, I'd rather see humans do it. We don't need AI to do this. But it's getting so bad. I mean, I'm talking about this will be a recurring theme in this episode, just of the things I've watched since we last talked a couple of days ago. My goodness. But yeah, I think there were some interesting things that are happening, and then they'll all be addressed one way or another in this episode. But getting the commissioners together, and of course, softballs, or everything's going to be soft pedaled, making get this out of McAfee's hands, get it into some hardcores, and really grill these guys and put their feet to the fire. Since they're nickel and diming us every which way they can, it is a business to make a profit. Yeah, all right. Man, what is this thing about Will Levis? That I will just say, on his way to being a journeyman, the question is how long? I guess him and his mom had to shell out a significant sum of money to get his sex tape scrubbed from the internet. One of these chicks who's also got a following, and some people on the other side of the world were able to hack into the account. And I guess this was making the rounds. I didn't know about that, and I'm probably glad I didn't. But I think it is interesting that he had to shell out money, and from what I understand, if you look hard enough, you can still find some evidence of that out there, which is wow. Once again, get your freaky deaky and don't record yourself. How about that? Yeah. I spoke the other day about Naomi Osaka and her all black party. Yeah. I got another thing or two. I don't want to stay on that too long. I think I hit that pretty good in Aftershocks as far as my disdain for it. But the tone deafness that comes out of this is really astonishing. We know that she's an MM, but I don't want to make light of some of the tribulations she's been through as far as the journey of mental health is concerned. But come on, especially when you double down on it, with some mumbo jumbo woke message that's supposed to have a little sting to it, but instead kind of makes you look like a out of touch. I'm gonna say idiot, because that's being too nice to idiots as far as how that came across. Nothing wrong with bringing the brothers and sisters together for a gathering, but the need to feel that this is a sign of how far we've come. Yeah, somebody make that one make sense for me. Okay. Ooh, it wouldn't be an open face if I wasn't talking about Stephen A. Smith. And the news again. I guess, not a guess, I know. What's his face? Mr. Hart, Kevin Hart, made what was the exact quote? This is where I know I need to start incorporating media into this. Stephen, it's supposed about Rushmore of blacks who hate black people. Obviously, it was just a joke. But I can understand when somebody says you hate black people or calls you a token or an Uncle Tom or any of those other derogatory terms. If you ain't towing the party line, I can see Stephen A. Smith being taken aback. But it's a roast. And he acknowledged that. A roast, we do get out of line. But this is the kind of stuff that got, what's his face, smacked upside his head by Will Smith. So, yeah, it just sometimes you might want to stay away from certain things. And I know it's a roast, or whatever they do around holidays when you're airing your grievances. My friends do. I never take part in it. You just gotta watch what you say and how that's going to affect people. And this is one of those weird times where I'm just like, oh my fucking, pardon my language, oh my friggin' word, I almost have to agree with Stephen A. Smith. And then Stephen A. Smith and this thing with Nick Wright, where I go back to like clowning the guy. And kudos to Nick Wright. I'm not always on the same cruise liner with him, but I agree. This idea that Stephen A. Smith is Don Corleone and making people kiss the ring, and it's such an FYMF. Good for you pushing back. Okay, let's go circular here. Let's go. What else is going on? Since we've been chatting for a moment. So, Michelle Tafoya, she's got her hat in the political ring. And my, oh my, Tony Dungy supports her. Excuse me. Like, she's got a snowball's chance in hell of winning in Minnesota at this point in time. But of course, Tony Dungy, because after all, they were colleagues, he gives her an endorsement. And I'm sure that's really going to sway the folks in Minnesota. But good for you, Tony. Okay, let's be a little more light here. Mr. Britt Musburger is celebrating his 87th milestone or 87th turn around the sun. I'm just sitting there thinking, because this guy has been a major part of my sporting life, obviously being the sports junkie that I am. And I sat there and go, man, he's almost in his ninth decade. And it's cool we see him occasionally. So we want to wish Mr. Brent Musburger a happy 87th birthday. Cool stuff there. Okay, so I don't know what to say about this one. I'm always talking about the absurdity of the sports memorabilia market and the ridiculous prices. And we know Oklahoma City and San Antonio are in the midst of building the next great rivalry as far as great playoff series that we talk about, hopefully. And we'll talk about Mr. Wembanyama, but more about the actual players. And this is a rare card, apparently. I guess it's a one-on-one. It fetched $5.1 million in auction in a private. 5.1 for a Wemby card that is rare. What are we doing over here, people? Even if Wemby becomes the next Bill Russell somehow the next decade, then maybe the card's 5. You ain't won jack yet. The card's going for 5.1 million. What are we doing? Well, at least there's something sane going on here. Apparently, YouTube is going to start putting out marks on. You're going to have a system that's going to detect AI generated videos and mark them as such. Long time coming there. What is that going to be? Like 85% of the content that's being put out? Good grave. Remember that Wander Franco guy? Little dirtbag with the young girls, got ran out of MLB? We got the dirtbag label put upon him. The scarlet letter, Hester Prynne kind of stuff when he was in the courts. But no jail time. I didn't dig into the particulars, and Annie Elise hasn't picked it up, the internet crime sleuth. She ain't talking about it, so I probably won't find out the actual details. I probably don't want to know the details, but somehow he's as free as a bird. And that ain't right, apparently. Okay. Wow. Always talking about that Tillman Furtada. I always pronounce his last name wrong. I apologize because you are a very rich man. Rich enough to where you can add Caesars Entertainment, which what that means. Vegasites for $6 billion, even though somebody else tried to say it was 17.6 billion, but I think it's 6 billion. So interesting that the other TV is adding another major entity to its portfolio. Must be friggin' nice. I don't know what to make about this one either. Man. Okay. There was this story going around, and I forget who they say it was, but some NBA player offered Sophie Rain that Sophie Rain. 15 million to take her V card. I'm like, well, when was Sophie Rain? Wasn't her V card gone? Probably way back in the Obama era or something like that. I'm not sure how old she is, but that doesn't even make any sense to me unless she was one of those who said, "Hey, I'm going to give it up to somebody and then become OnlyFans legend." Yeah, but somebody offering 15 million to take your V card. I'm sure if you're a famous player, even though I'm sure there are ways to get somebody's V card legally, I might add, with your fame, that would be a $15 million more to like helping people like myself as Jay gets down and the other cool creators out there. Yeah, you can put us on salary before you spend 15 million to take Sophie Rain's V card. Which, come on. I know we're just having too much fun here. Wow. The culture and this takeover mob phenomenon. You've been getting that's in the news. People going off on these motorcycles, all kinds of wild stuff. Waymo suspending Waymo rides on the freeway over safety concerns because they can't figure out where the construction zones, flooded roads, and other weird stuff. You saw the one where they put the little guy on the road, which you see in neighborhoods to keep it slow for the kids, and all the cars got all whacked out. Jeez. Cars for Kids, 187 Cars for Kids loses again in California court. So we may never be seeing those annoying commercials, especially since it's a total scam. Oh, we'll close you with this one. How about that party mom in the Bay Area? Bad, 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 bad lady. I mean, I'm not even going to give her a 10 strip because the judge gave her 35 years. All these weird teachers, like I said, you're always exploiting the women more than the men who are doing this stuff, which is not right. But all those folks who got off with a slap on the wrist, this judge was like, oh no, you're going to be doing that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, if you know about the case, there's some shady and just downright beyond the pale of unacceptable stuff that was going on there. Yeah, the judge went buck wild on her ass. 35 years. Wow, I know. Got a bit tawdry there as far as that goes, but hey, I had to talk about Party Mom. Or one of the victim's moms said, don't call her Party Mom, call her pedophile mom. It's like, damn, or pedophile and perverted mom. I forget what the lady said. All right, folks, we're out of the stable, meandering, obviously. When we come back, we'll see what's happening on campus. And there was a lot to talk about. We'll see you in a moment. Ah, yeah, ah, yeah, ah, yeah. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in the Foxhole, episode 316. With your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling, like Kravica Karvachkelia. T minus one, y'all. Excuse me, better get something wet my whistle here. Too early for the adult bevs, but maybe some energy drinks. Boy, I've got a rough cough going here. Allergies just blowing up the Willamette Valley as they tend to do this time of year with the grassy farms in Lynn County, blowing all that wonderful pollen downstream. So, yeah. But we might get a little rain today to wash some of it down, so that'd be a nice relief. Okay, let's get the homies and homettes together. Let's get our Uber. Since now we're the 2 o'clock hour, we'll be able to get to the Eugene airport out at Fuss. boogieing with Stu through TSA, grinning and winking all along the way till we get to the tarmac where our shimmering Gulfstream G650 awaits us, where we're going to get to our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet. For what? To take the high view over the campuses of America. What is going on campus as another school year reaches its conclusion as we get near June and the schools in the quarter start packing it in for the summer. Well, I talked about this the other day and got to hear an interesting conversation. Drawing a serious blank, pardon me. I need to bring my notes with me a little bit more or add them to my outline. So great. I was watching Fearless with Jason Whitlock this morning. He had this senator. What state is he from? Anyways, I talked about the whole bipartisan bill with Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell. And you got a little more insight into that. And I'm like a lot of folks who are following this, very cautious. Because as we know, getting anything done in the halls of Congress is not an easy thing given how divided we are when it comes to both sides of the aisle. But I do like, as I said the other day, there's a lot of win-win provisions in this for all sides. If we're willing to let the adults put the hammer down, that you're going to have to give a little here. And I know the wicked folks out there, it's like, no, man, we want to keep it this way so we can get this big. Why limit the bag of cash I can get? And they're not doing that because if you're Libby Dunn, the Cavender twins, or Shedeur Sanders, or Archie Manning, you can make all the loot you friggin' want on true name, image, and likeness. Provisions to generate enough money by pooling the network money, so all the sports that don't generate revenue will have an income stream, kind of the way it was in the past in terms of football funding anything, but now the big entity takes care of everyone. I was cool that Whitlock asked the senator, I wish I could remember his name, asked him a good question. Said, can you play devil's advocate? He said, not really, because when at the end of the day, there's something in it for everybody, and we get some sanity. And maybe this thing has a chance. I do feel where things have spiraled out of control, it's leaving a bad taste in people's mouths. Sure, you're going to have Mr. Tillman, Mr. Phil Knight, and Martin Cuban. People with that kind of wealth, it doesn't matter. But the rank and file fans, you got to throw them a bone and sort of put some guardrails and bring some structure back. You can't have the COVID created this landscape, people playing 7, 8 years, always trying to find some more than willing judge to go along with this nonsense. I mean, and so if this does happen, what does TV or the stream have to say? If the conference is pooling their money. I don't necessarily think they care because in the end, everybody, they're going to still make money. And in fact, that's what people are trying to say that, what is it, college football in particular dwarfs the NBA. So why is their media rights package not reflecting that? A whole lot of cheddar. We know the appetite is endless as I'm sitting here watching UCLA kind of on the ropes here, 2-2 in their opening round of the Los Angeles Regional. And Homie just got himself in a little pickle. So that's not a scoring opportunity, but sorry to get sidetracked. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think the schools, not everybody, as this conversation unpacks, we'll make that abundantly clear. But we'll start off with the TV and the stream. And I do think it's a win-win. And hopefully, they're massaging these talks. They think getting a little sanity around this helps them too. Because eventually the cream's going to rise to the top and it's going to be box office, which is okay. So let's break this down a little bit. Number one, the 16-24 debate's getting more heated by the hour. I spent some time watching Feinbaum's show, which I really never do because I don't think about it. But I just wanted to get a sample. And it's interesting because I'm not, folks that call into his show, and I think the SEC fan is pretty knowledgeable. As far as most of the folks know it's inevitable, they just want it to be quality at this point. There are some folks that feel it's gonna be too watered down, but it's an inevitable truth. It's just how do we go about that? You got Kirby Smart coming out this week saying that, if you all can't get your what together, the SEC should break away from it and form its own playoff structure. I think I mentioned that in Aftershocks. I'm like, oh yeah, let's create a European Super League, and the rich and only the rich get to be a part of. Could be great TV, but come on, British Petroleum. The corporates would be all up in you like white on rice, yo. Oh man. And of course, in this, because the SEC and the Big Ten are having their spring meetings, so a lot of their version of the hot stove league, basically. A lot of things percolating before everybody shuts down for the summer. And the conversation goes back and forth. I was watching Feinbaum, watching a few other things as we're putting this episode together this week. And the SEC refuses to back away that they are not the superior conference, even though, by the looks of what you see in football and basketball, the Big Ten are saying, so what? The SEC says, well, you guys have some elite teams with big money, but the rest of your conferences can gotta. Look at us from the baseball regional, which I think I mentioned last week. Look at us in the Women's College World Series. But I think it's funny that those two teams are definitely pushing that narrative. No, we're driving this. No, we're driving, this big growth with, the revenue and even the interest as far as college sports is concerned, which is, I think, is funny. And, if you throw in somebody like Oklahoma's athletic director Roger Denny, who thinks a 24-team college football playoff will lead to more robust non-conference schedules. And I thought, yeah, you're just saying that to make the party line. But then I thought about it for about 10 seconds and said, he's on to something there, which I've been saying for a while anyhow. And I thought that's what this conference realignment would do, would give us better matchups. And it pivoted us towards that, which we haven't seen. But now that teams have adopted these 9 games conference schedules, you don't want to have Georgia Southern Furman on your schedule because in this 24-team playoff, which theoretically should be easier to make, it's going to even be more of a scramble as far as what your resume looks like and how you might get screwed. Because, there is going to be some DEI kind of stuff in this. As far as, even if you go to 24, how it's going to be structured and who gets in. Anyway. But, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because I think the Ducks and Beavers, I mentioned this the other day too, I believe, they're going to be playing 28 through 32. I just saw somebody else is jump-starting their series. It makes sense. And that's the goal all along of moving around, that we get great matchups most weekends of the year. And that's the way it should be. Every time we turn on the TV, it's like, oh, okay. Or Oregon State's going to be playing Oregon. Great, non-conference. That's something I want to watch. I'm never going to watch Alabama taking on Furman or Wolford or whatever, okay? It's just not going to happen. Speaking of the Ducks, interesting week for them. I mean, they lose a heartbreak to the aforementioned UCLA in the Big Ten title game. Very controversial, saw a lot of comments on some of the Duck Facebook pages. But time to go to the robo-umps. But nonetheless, the Ducks end up all right in this. They're hosting a regional. The Beavers are not. Problem for the Ducks is the Ducks have the Beavers in the regional, and they also have Washington State. Kind of seems like old times, yeah? So this will be a fun weekend at PK Park as far as memories of a Pac-12 I used to know. Okay, we did mention Sorsby's appeal being denied the other day. Brandon Sorsby, Texas Tech. The few weirdos who are hoping he does get another shot. Everybody else is just tired of this guy. Or you're in between. Let's be fair, because there are some people that say, well, maybe let him sit half the season. And I say to all that, British Petroleum, just like Party Mom I mentioned in the last segment, certain people you need to make an example out of. Deter others from thinking about it. That's why punishment is meant to be a deterrent. It's not, oh, I kind of feel sorry for this kid. He's going, no. Doing what you get to do, where Texas Tech is going to pay you $5 or $6 billion, is definitely not a right. That is an extreme privilege you are fortunate to have. And if you're too much of a jackass to truly appreciate it, we're not supposed to have tears of woe for you. All right. Glad the Ducks and Beavers are going to be playing again. Of course, we have to wait until 2028 for that to happen, which kind of sucks. Glad to see that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State going to bring back Bedlam because of all this, so that's cool. Anyways, and it's kind of cool to see some of these schools who, they're trying to move up to the big time. Like I've mentioned Sac State a lot in the past. You find out that they have 5 TV appearances. See, stepping up and getting the necessary opportunities for exposure, and that's great for them. Same thing with UC Davis getting on TV 3 times. I think it's great for those kind of programs. It's the only way, only way you can make this thing work, is to get visibility. You're certainly not out there for the sake of it, or my alma mater would still have a football team. Lastly, give flowers to the men's Princeton lacrosse team winning the Natty. Got to watch that on Memorial Day. I was actually pretty psyched. Domination there. Good for the Tigers. Okay, folks, when we return, something you should probably know. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Time for one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know about things that happened this past week in the world of sports that you might want to know or possibly even care about. Wow. I talked earlier this week about Caitlin Clark. A lot to say about her this week, as we do every week when the WNBA is in season, like everybody else. So that'll be fine. But yeah, fortunately, this is about her. This is more about Felix Rosenquist winning the Indy 500. Great finish. Great maneuver to get past what is it? I can't remember. It begins with an M. The cat that he passed. He was heartbroken trying to win his first 500. Saw him the next day, first things first, with the bottles of milk. Thought that was cool. Also noteworthy, Catherine Legg, who was trying to do the double. She crashed out in her attempt to pull off both. Yeah, as they say, S happens. Mm-hmm. And speaking of wanting to do the double, big shout out to Daniel Shiraz. winning the rain shortened, emotionally drenched Coca-Cola 600. I mean, the big thing is Kyle Busch was on everybody's mind. You could see it all throughout race weekend. You know, good to see the NASCAR family kind of rally around, a huge moment. I was thinking about that more and more, as far as, somebody who's been around for a while, but wasn't that old. You remember him and his brother, how young they got into this. And yeah, it's the same thing, with like Dale Earnhardt, even though Dale was at the half century mark, still felt he probably had, another 5 to 10 years of racing in it. And Kyle was still 10 years from that point. So yeah, it just interesting weekend. A lot of emotion, good racing all around. Speaking of, man, Kimi Antonelli, you need to just chill with your badass self. He wins again, taking the honors at the Canadian Grand Prix. Flowers. Yeah, because we mentioned him when we had our annual road racing review, and yeah, so far, not sure what the heck's going on with Mad Max as far as his head is concerned. It's good to see Lewis Hamilton really starting to feel like he can do something over there at Ferrari. So cool there, cool beans there. Let's go grab the clubs here real quick. Take a quick gander. Byron Nelson, which is at TPC Craig Ranch. I mean, people are putting up some scores. I mentioned last week at the halfway mark, was it Kim who shot like a 60 after bogeying 18? And then we have former Duck Wyndham Clark clocking a 60 on Sunday. Hell, people are just eating that course up to take the honors. So something the Ducks can smile about there for sure. And then you've got PGA firing their boss, Don Ray. Basically, this is centers around the fallout from the Ryder Cup fiasco where unruly Americans, being ugly Americans, yeah, situation in the Ryder Cup, it was too much like Tucson, and you don't, not Tucson, but Phoenix, the WM Open. You don't need the WM Open completely. It's okay for a little banter here and there between Europe and us. After all, we're always going to have that sort of rivalry. And we're the brash upstarts across the pond that think we're all that. Fine, but it got out of control. And obviously, the PGA felt they had to sacrifice somebody. As they say, deterrence. When it is, I know I'm laughing so hard, but deterrence. When you can come up with a structure, oh boy. If you knew what I was laughing about, it's too much. But yeah. Anyways, you get where I'm coming from. In terms of sometimes you gotta met out a harsh punishment to deter folks from, as the General Andre always says, doing stupid shit. Memorial Day. Salute out to the vets later on in the week. We're still feeling the spirit. Of course, Tiger Woods has to come out and salute the vets. And the funny thing is, it didn't even make a ripple. Why is that? Because nobody cares what Tiger says or thinks anymore. Yes, all the pills and all the other weird stuff. Where we have Tiger fatigue and when Tiger shows up, people say, so what? Got any pills? Oh, that was me. But it's true. I just get the sense that nobody really cares at this point. They're just like, oh, you don't even know what to make of you, guy. You're like an empty vessel. Ooh, that's kind of mean, but true. A lot of interesting stuff going on down under. I've been meaning to get Mr. Big back on the show. What's going to happen here? He's booked. We just got to catch him on a night when he's not taking care of his mommy, the lovely Vera. Well, yeah, we want to get him back on here because earlier in the week, Sinner got cramps and had one of the bigger collapses you're going to see in a major championship. Then today, just now, I haven't had time to unpack it. The Joker at his bid for a 25th Grand Slam title, he comes up short after leading 2-0. I think his record was pretty astonishing after leading 2 sets. So we'll hopefully get a chance to break into that and probably talk some other fun stuff with Mr. Big sooner than later, hopefully. Let's see, what else do I got here? Okay, UFC has been posting pictures, and so has the White House. So construction for this Capitol Octagon, what I'm calling it, for the brawl for 250. Yeah, this is going to be something else. I'll talk about the concert later in the Nightfall of Diamonds, but yeah, this is wow. But as the late Ricky Jay said in Boogie Nights, it is what it is. Oh boy. And okay, I forget who it was. Was it Max Kellerman? No, it wasn't Max Kellerman. He wouldn't do that. There's somebody kind of prominent that said, we've seen the end of combat sports, boxing, MMA. And when we decide to cover Johnny Manziel, who won his MMA debut, I might add, so we have hit rock bottom. And I thought, wow, he's not far off, man. You know, at least Manziel has he knows his limitations. He said, "Cool, I did that, got my win in. I ain't getting back in the ring." So no, this is for me. Then you got Greg Hardy, that Greg Hardy, the former linebacker, fighting. He was like 20 pounds overweight in this. Challenger said, "F it, let's do this anyway." My goodness. I'll close you out on this one. How about Ohio's governor, whose name escapes me? For some reason I didn't write it down when I was putting the outline together, but it's Donald Sutherland, Mr. X, said JFK, just part of the scenery. Main point is, he said sports betting is his biggest mistake of his regime. Letting sports betting legislation go through and it becoming legal. I think that was a really interesting take. Because as much as a lot of us, especially my dearly departed bro, we talked about this for years, how absurd it wasn't, but now that it's here, and some of the complications that have come from it. Hi, Brandon Sorsby. Hi, Terry Rozier, among others. Maybe he's on to something there in terms of the mess we've made there, like we've made in college sports. But hey, really hard once the genie's been let out of the bottle to get it back in. Okay, we'll wrap that segment up. When we return, we're going to go to the hardwood. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about there, as you could imagine. See you momentarily. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. UCLA and St. Mary's 2-2. Headed to the visitor ninth. Interesting, as they say. The Gales trying to flex. UCLA, a season they've had, so I have a lot to say about that throughout this episode and probably bleed into next week as we understand who will be going to Omaha, or closer to understanding, I should say. Okay, let's go grab some popcorn, grab our seats. Let's talk some basketball. The NBA beat coming at you. Start off with piggyback on what I said at the end of last segment with Ohio's governor talking about the big mistake he made with sports betting legislation, that is. And Terry Rozier is in hot wire. Apparently, his data is coming to light about how he bet on his team 6 figures, apparently. Man, they're going to cook that turkey in some very hot peanut oil. It's looking like, yeah, I'll be surprised if he doesn't see the inside of a jail. How's that? Another interesting story that is gaining legs. Insiders are more than ever convinced that new Blazer owner Mr. Dundon will eventually move the Blazers out of PDX. And I'm seeing this from Portland-based journalists, which must mean there is no language to keep him from relocating. I think the saner folks in this debate, because, okay, they laid off a bunch of people, but hey, the new Laker front office just laid off quite a few people from their organization. So that Lakers aren't going anywhere. And some of the changes over there don't mean they're going anywhere either. And the fact that the Panthers are pretty successful, the Canes, the hockey Canes, pretty successful. You do have some folks that are in the discussions saying, just chill, give this guy time to implement his vision. And I think that is fair. I've said that from day one. I am watching it more and more, though, because I do think the relationship that Portland has with this team is not aligned with this guy's vision. Whether Portland embraces that or he tells Portland to F-O, because after all, the reigning champs once were in Seattle, and had quite a legacy there. I still can't see it, but gee whiz. The smart people are saying it, which makes me, or the people that we think are smart are saying it, makes me want to say, yeah, it's something I have to keep on my radar. Okay. This shouldn't shock anybody. It's kind of sad when you look at what the kid in New York has done in the Tim Duncan, Tom Brady model, taking less. But LeBron James, we all are witnesses. He is not willing to take a pay cut to return to the Cavaliers. Or so they say. But what does that even mean then? If Cleveland's not going to be a landing spot for him? Enough people in Lakerland, the tea leaves are like, yo, man, at a fair rate to us, yeah, maybe we could work you in for a farewell tour. But as a diehard Lakers family Facebook former NFLer Philip Daniels said, we ain't ever going to have a chance to win a title if our 3 best players can't play like a D. And LeBron will be 42. You think his D's going to get better overnight? Probably not. Okay, let's get into this. Cleveland and the Knicks. Talked about this on Aftershock, so I don't need to regurgitate. I'm more curious about Mr. Brunson, the conversation I had the other day, and others have been having all week about would this make him the greatest Knick? Which I don't think so, but yeah, I put him on the Mount Rushmore, and the fact that kid won in college, and they said took less in the Tom Brady, Tim Duncan model. That's very laudable. That's having a vision. I know this won't be a template. I know not many people will follow his lead because, honey, you get what your true value is every time if you can. It's a must. No, to some people it's not. Legacy is more important. And believe me, Clyde Frazier is still a god in New York. Anybody who's ever won in New York is basically a deity for life. You win in New York. I mean, you think Eli Manning wins 2 Super Bowls elsewhere? There's a Manning cast. I mean, Peyton probably has a Peyton cast. Come on, man. You think Frank Gifford becomes a legend if we didn't do it in Gotham. And New York is so thirsty right now. Still love it that Becky Hammond's still doubling down on her comments. Ain't gonna matter, but like I said, I can appreciate Becky Hammond being Becky Hammond. I think it's funny though that the NYPD had to come in and shut down some of these watch parties because they're becoming so unruly. I mean, a thirsty town, a proud sports town. It hasn't been getting a lot of love in recent years because obviously nobody cares that New York City Football Club won in 2021 or that title of Liberty won. No, they're talking about no. I'm not about a real league. Sorry to put the other leagues down in that way, but I know how New Yorkers think and how most sports fans in major cities that have legacies think. How's that? Man. Okay. The other series is interesting. The Oliver Stone School of Conspiracy is dancing after the Spurs take Game 6 in San Antonio, forcing a Game 7 tomorrow, 5:30. Be there or be square. That was interesting, though. The Spurs lost earlier in the series, and was it De'Aaron Fox who brought this up? That basically Greg Popovich went in and pulled the Don Corleone move, or basically what Cameron, what's her face, did in any given Sunday, came in and read everybody the riot act, which led the Oliver Stone School to say, "See, I told you, Pop is still pulling the levers." Well. What kind of mojo will Pop have when it comes to Game 7? I thought Wemby responded okay last night. I'll get to SGA and a closer look. But yeah, this series has lived up to its billing. We're going to get a Game 7 out of this. Yeah, this surely could be the future of what the league's going to look like for the foreseeable future. So let's grab our popcorn and enjoy. Now, speaking of SGA, I think it's funny that he told Underdog, "Oh, hell no," with the NIL. You ain't using my image and likeness in any way. Cease and desist now. I control how everything I do. And that's where we are now. Especially if you're a big brand, you're just like, no, we got this. Okay. Also, Joe Mazzulla, named Coach of the Year, 37. Not bad. Fourth Boston coach to do it all time. Cool stuff there. All right. Now we get to the fun stuff. Let's talk the queens of the court for a moment or two. It's good that AZ Fudd is starting to cook this whole tandem with her and Paige. She's been balling out. I mean, she had in the 20s last night. But when she made a comment the other day, which is one more reason why this will always be such an unlikable league in terms of the cast of characters. Play out every stereotype that misogynists have when it comes to women in sports. Just it's all playing out, and it's just like so silly to watch from afar. Let me tell you, man. I mean, good grief. And then, some good basketball. I mean, did you see Kelsey Plum just cook the Aces? Even Cameron Brink, I think, had 16 in that game. I mean, then you had Caitlin Clark had a good game, and then last night, Caitlin Clark, the rematch with the Golden State Valkyries, didn't have the greatest of games, but you think we were reliving the Kennedy assassinations the way people were carrying on last night into this morning, as far as the mistreatment of Caitlin Clark. And then some people calling her a bum, hopping on the Jamel Hill carry champion train, but that she is doing some things that are making her more unlikable. I don't know what it is with the cult of Caitlin and the haters. When I know this, they were all happy last night, and the apostles, they've been rallying. They've been having revivals all morning. Brother say, "What is up?" I go, "Man, we haven't even played 10 games yet, man. Chill the F out." It is kind of interesting that Aaliyah Boston's the biggest girl on the court, and somehow you've got her playing up like Wimby at the top of the key. Make that one make sense for me, huh? Wow. It's so funny. Kathy Engelbert. Well, no, before I get to Kathy Engelbert, flowers to Tiffany Hayes. Tiffany Hayes, who got her 30 seconds, just like what's her face did last year. Was it Gianni Carrington? Also the Kennedy check for getting it to Caitlin Clark. Got you some haters out there as far as the RPG, the Radical Peanut Galleries are concerned. But she walked it back, basically said, look, the rivalry is about the Valkyries versus the Fever. It ain't about me. And good. And when I was watching the telecast, nothing really was made of it. And give the Valkyries their flowers. Nutted up when they had to and didn't make things easy for the Queen. Simple as that. Now, let me get back to, maybe I'll talk about Carrie and Jamel on Aftershocks. That deserves some real talk there. But we'll see. Maybe we'll see where we're at. Kathy Engelbert wants the commissioner. He wants to take the game global. Hey, let's just focus on making yourself self-sustaining first. Figure out what image you want to be your message moving forward before we start having global ambitions. Can we do that? And what's it with my girl HVL getting waived again? She was playing well for Connecticut. I'm not a simp for her, but I think she can play in this league. And I'm really shocked that a team that's clearly in tank mode, and maybe she's playing too good for them to tank. I don't know. I really have I'm starting to wonder now if she can stick in this league. I thought she was going to, but she may have to go over to Europe to find her niche so she can be somebody that can get a few bags playing in the W. That's just what I think. Lastly, the Caitlin Clark circus, it's unbelievable. It really is. And when she has a bad game like last night, because she was poo in the second half, the amount of content that's out there about this particular game is just staggering, people. I kid you not. All right, folks, we need to keep the train rolling on the tracks. When we come back, we'll do a little Nightfall of Diamonds, which means we're going to talk a little hippie, and we're going to talk a whole lot of baseball, and we may even hop on the Zamboni and ride on the ice rink alive. See you in a moment. Ah, yay, ah, yay, ah, yay. What it is. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole, episode 316, hashtag 10/28. For those of you keeping score at home, looks like UCLA is trying to get something going here at the bottom of the ninth. Yeah, I got some great stories about this particular facility, especially when it comes to the 92 riots. Might have to do a podcast with my peeps about that. LA 92. We're going to look back the past year on a closer look. Anyways, let's get our friend with the Day Glow bus on his lot. Let's hop on that and let's do a little Dark Star Crashes and the Nightfall of Diamonds before we talk some baseball. Man, oh man, a lot to talk about this week, I guess. I'm pretty impressed with the shows they're releasing as far as Play Dead is concerned. Definitely giving us a fat slice of MSG 88, basically all those shows, and some stuff from like 84, 85, and 86, the middle 80s, which, quite a step out there, not the highest quality, and now we're seeing that. So that's all get up and giddy with all the processes taking place behind the scenes. But then you've got, so in wake of the the Godfathers, Phil and Bob, no longer with us. Obviously, there hasn't been any plans with anybody else to do anything on that level. So we have all these other bands that have stepped up into the space as far as giving people their moment. I thought, because so there's a dead fest basically last week. Dark Star Orchestra was having its jamboree, which had all kinds of dead related bands, and then on another stream there was Joey Russo's Almost Dead. I took in a little bit of both. I enjoyed J Rad a little bit more because J Rad's just got a more muscular approach to the music that I definitely like the intensity. But I just sit there thinking to myself, man, where where are we? I just saw for Melvin Sills and JGB, and they were on the bill at the Dark Star Orchestra thing. It was like $50, which I guess is reasonable in this day and age. But I'm still thinking, man, did I ever pay $50 to see the real JGB? And that, which means, why would I do it now? I got nothing but mad love for Melvin, John Kay, and all those folks. I was just sitting there thinking, maybe I am that. Maybe I am a cheapskate or something like that. But I was like, and I've seen some of the prices for Dark Star Orchestra. I'm like, oh, y'all paying that much for? Don't get me wrong. I'm not. These guys are all talented. Yeah, I mean, especially when I think of Melvin Sills and JGB. But then I'm thinking, man, I got reams of incredible shows of the real thing that I still don't have time. I've got time to get to. So why would I? Anyways, each his own, I suppose. Man, give it up to the Disco Biscuits. Closed out Mishawaka with his burner 64-minute improv jam for the first set. They busted out the CWB, the Chemical War Brigade, the Chemical Warfare Brigade opera. First time they did that since '09. Only the sixth time overall. Wish I was there, but listening to the high res 2496. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Good stuff. Good for you, Bisco. Lastly, yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention. Okay, so I talked about construction for the Octagon 250. And of course, there's this big concert that's supposed to be going on at one of the events, over basically recreating the state fair, but at the Capitol, and with an I Love 90s theme, which has, a lot of folks from R&B and hip hop or whatever you want to call that, those genres. But funny, I guess you didn't tell a lot of these folks. It seems like everybody. No, I ain't being associated with anything when it comes to that administration because it's like you've got Morris Day of the time, even Millie Vanilli, that guy, the surviving guy, all of the Commodores, all these people go to their social media, making it clear, oh, no, we ain't being part of this. Wow. And St. Mary's closes the door on UCLA. UCLA is going to have to scratch to stay alive. Okay. Wow. So, anyways, I thought that was just interesting. There's just that all these artists fling from I Love the 90s, the state fair thing for this American 250 celebration. I've said this before on this platform. I'm going to say it again. Maybe because I was young and naive, I could have swore all the celebrations for the bicentennial were way much cooler, much more pageantry. Wasn't all this S show stuff we're seeing right now. But anyways, it is what it is, as the late Ricky Jay would say. Okay, let's hop off the bus, because eventually the Dark Star burns out. The bus runs out of gas. Let's get to the real night full of diamonds. Yeah, it's somber that we lost Bob Horner, Horner on the corner, a legendary Brave. He grew up in the late 70s and early 80s. Guy was a masher. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Also, we lost saxophone colossus, the legendary Sonny Rollins, who I think he was 95. Very influential musician there. Our condolences go out to all their peeps for sure, man. Big losses there in both cases, and gigantic when it comes to Sonny. Ooh, man. Okay, let's get cracking here. So it's pretty clear the tea leaves are up there. Baseball wants to expand. We always thought that would be solved, with Oakland and the issues in Tampa. Oakland's going to Las Vegas. Talked about that earlier in the week with the stadium rising quickly. 2028 will be here before you know it. Tampa, fine. So now they want to expand to 2 teams. A lot of folks out there, speaking of Sacramento, they're acquiring land. And what it sounds like is, this is a very legitimate pitch. But apparently Nashville and Salt Lake City, you can see why everybody wants it on Music City. I think with Salt Lake City, they already have a stadium in place that just needs improvements. So let's keep an eye on that, because we obviously know Portland, but being in Oregon, I'll be stunned if Portland gets in on this round. Stranger things have happened, but I just don't see it. Okay. Bigger news. So the MLB submits its first proposal for the CBA. As we know, it's that time again. And this will contain a salary cap. So, okay, folks, we know what's ahead of us. I've already kind of broke this down. Are we going to see a repeat of 94? Well, now we know the angles and who's going to be looking for sympathy and getting people in their corner. So stay tuned for this. Hopefully they can sort it out before it gets to that point, but nah, that ain't happening. Okay. The Nationals under fire for discriminating against religious players and people who are religious within the organization. Didn't have that on your 2026 scorecard now, did you? I haven't had a chance to do a deep dive with this one yet because it's just so ludicrous. I didn't want to take it seriously, but yeah, there's some stuff going on to the point where one of their head guys is kind of to scrub his social media, get off LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff. Meaning it's scapegoat time. Somebody messed up. Somebody's going to have to take one for the team. Okay, let's get to some on-the-field action after we've talked enough about other stuff. The American League West, I think as of yesterday, everybody's under 500. So, Angel fans, you're pissed at Artie, but heck, the division's so bad, you get hot. You might have a chance. Whole division under 500 as we get to June 1st. Imagine that. The Dodgers, last we talked, they got hammered by the Brew Crew, but they took 2 out of 3. So, the Dodgers are doing what they need to do. They're getting the breather right now with the Rockies, and Ohtani, what does he do? Leads off with a home run, goes 6 innings, throws a no-no for 6 innings, and obviously the bullpen lost the no-no, but the Dodgers ended up taking 2 of 3. And speaking of people from the Far East, how about that guy for the White Sox, Murakami? Dude's raking. He's got Tony Knox before 6-1. Keep an eye on that cat. I don't know where the Cubs streak is right now. Let me take a look here. I know as of Wednesday, they had lost like 10 in a row. Let's go look at this here real quick. Improvise on the fly. Okay, they've won 2 in a row now. They won their last 2, but they had lost 10. And the thing is, just to show you how things are, how well they're doing, they're still in second place, only 4 games behind the Brew Crew, after just laying a big stinky diaper for a 10 or 12 game stretch. Make that one make sense for you, or for me and you. Speaking of combined no-hitters, Astros combined for one on Monday night. Travis Kelce obtains a share of the Guardians. You know, the Kelce's ties to that area. Makes sense. These guys know they know what's happening. Of course, the Guardians. Yeah, you gonna get you and Tay gonna go to the games? Hell yeah, you can have a piece. Okay. Gee, let's hop on the Zamboni and take a ride around the ice rink of life. Okay. The Canes, as mentioned earlier, man that owns the Trailblazers, they're doing that voodoo that they do. Seems like the Canadians are a little inexperienced. And by the way, another somber RIP, I forgot to mention Claude Lemieux, and that one's terrible. As it turns out, suicide, former Canadian, 4-time Stanley Cup winner. Yeah, condolences go out to his peep. I was saying that this Canadians team, apparently, the experience is showing. Kings are up 3-1. Other side of the equation, I talked about it the other day, the President's Cup winner for the 13th time in a row, Vegas Golden Knights, in their third final in their very brief existence. So, heck yeah, man. This is some wild stuff. Yeah. I think that's probably all we've got. So it's looking like a Carolina Vegas Stanley Cup. That ought to be exciting. Okay. When we come back, we will go pitch side and talk some soccer or football proper. See you momentarily. All right, then. Little 8-track Liberators. How about that? Okay. Let's go pitch side, shall we? UCL final tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. The Red and Blues from the City of Lights, the capital, taking on the Gunners, Arsenal. Boy. Yeah, I'll have a lot to say about that. I'm obviously a huge PSG fan, so you know I'm nervous as you know what right now. Can't lie. But yeah, along with that, yeah, this is pretty much kind of the first course as we lead into World Cup mania. And speaking of, what a surprise. So it's going to have a $50 lottery for New York World Cup tickets, and it was shut down within minutes of it launching. So apt for the way it looks like this World Cup in the Americas is going to be. But proof will be in the details, won't it? It was mentioned the other day about the U.S. dropping its roster. A couple of things here. And then obviously he's having a flirtation with AC Milan to fill their open post. Obviously he's built a relationship with CP10. I gotta wonder, is Mauricio Pochettino rubbing the American sports fan base the wrong way? If you're a casual, I guess, but if you're a casual, you don't know enough to be irritated. And when it comes to everybody else that knows something, this is what you want, this is what you get. Okay. Man. Big news going around the MLS this week. Phil Neville out in Portland, mutually agreed. High expectations there, definitely not being met. So that's an interesting turn. The Union also fired Bradley Carnell. This is after they won the Supporters Shield year one, but they've only got 1-1 right now. Obviously, LAFC getting a hard-fought win when they need it really bad, Mark DeSantis goes into the 7-week World Cup break still employed. Not sure if everybody happy about that, but this is where we are. I think in both cases, as far as Portland and the Philadelphia Union, this is what I do like about soccer. If it smells like poo, it is poo, and it's time to open the windows and get some fresh air and do it ASAP. Man, some interesting things though heading into the World Cup. Messi tweaked his hamstring, but at Miami's win over the aforementioned Union doesn't seem to be a big deal. Nobody's freaking out about it. Isn't it funny about that Messi statue, though, in India that I guess it has to be removed because it's become a safety concern because it sways too much and they're worried that people that love Messi are going to get crushed if the stumble topples? Doesn't this stuff pass QA review? Quality control? Apparently not. Speaking of MLS, where are we as we head into what's going to be a 7-week break for the World Cup? We know the top 3 as far as the power rankings are concerned. We have Vancouver at top, Nashville, who's leading the East at 2, and Miami at 3. I'm okay with that. I mean, Miami has got a lot of draws, but they are absorbing a lot of losses. I'm still not sure if they've found their footing yet to really defend their title. Time will tell, right? So we have to ask ourselves, let's have some real talk. So we were off for 7 weeks. And I really started thinking about this. Like, first part of the schedule, what is that? Now we've got, what are we, 15 maybe? Yeah, I think we're 15 matches into the season. So, getting kind of close to the halfway point. And with the World Cup coming, I just don't like, but yes, there have been triple headers between Fox and FS1. But I don't feel like there's enough by this league. They're doing enough to seize a good opportunity. It's just, everything's kind of just out there. Instead of, no, it's in your face to the point of I'm obnoxious to really generate a buzz when clearly, the biggest global event is going to be played here in the Americas. And I just have to wonder, you bungled leading in. Is there any way for this league, and we're talking to you, Commissioner Garber, open letter, to really get a true boost, I should say, and make this league something instead of being a bust? Since I feel if you don't get a bump out of this, the time you take, because you're going to be moving to the European calendar, is a lost opportunity. I know I'm sounding like a broken record because I've brought this up many times, but we are finally at the gate. And you really need to be thinking about this, and I'm sure they are. They better be. A lot of competition coming up. We'll be talking about this in the weeks to come as we dip our toes a little bit deeper in the USL One ecosystem, part of the pyramid that should be in place before this decade is over. So this is where I like how the NWSL, they put it on pause as far as moving to the European calendar. And I thought to myself, because I'm always talking about the W. And what's great about the W for that league, even though they're despicable characters and try to ruin it every possible inch, it's in a window where you can get attention. You're not being smothered by the football albatross. It's a great time to get exposure. And I just wonder about the MLS, how serious they are about becoming a top 5 league, which let's always talk about that. But as they say, proof's in the details. And the details I'm seeing just don't fit that narrative. Yeah, all right. What else do we got? Man, this is going to be an interesting battle for the dollar. Now, I'm not sure if this is aftermarket or not, but the League's Cup, that cup that nobody likes between Liga MX and the MLS. I saw a couple of seats for this was an LAFC match. I forget who they're playing. But it's like down low, we're talking $900. Stuff's not sustainable, y'all. I mean, yeah, I'm sure some of you influencers out there making mad stacks and write this off. The rest of us, I'm like $900 for a cup that game in a competition that nobody really embraces. Make that one make sense. Man. Flowers for Rebecca Lowe in her Crystal Palace. That's her childhood club. They win the UEFA Conference League title. I think that's their first major title. So flowers to them. Good honor to take. What is it? It's raining outside in Eugene. The College World Series is in play, and Neymar's injured again. The only difference is Neymar's injured on the eve of the World Cup, which means he'll probably miss the opener. I will be surprised if he's ever fit enough to play any meaningful minutes. Prove me wrong, Neymar. Lastly, it's kind of interesting to see American, investment in the beautiful game live globally. And that can be obviously the Wrexham story comes to mind for most, but Tom Brady's got a piece. Everybody's got a piece of something. But apparently, the trend now is for Americans to start buying up Liga MX teams. So let's see how that plays out. All right, folks, that's the pitch side. When we come back, we'll have an intriguing, a closer look. See you momentarily. Alrighty, welcome back to the Foxhole. Faithful host Ken Harlan here on a slightly wet Friday. Rain coming down a little bit. Mid-afternoon drizzle. TGIF in it though. Hope everybody's gonna have a wonderful weekend coming up. Like, subscribe to FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. Be helping a brother out quite a bit. You do that. Tell your friends to do so as well. Tell them to tune in. Want to be on some of the platforms? Chat it up with me, please. Can't wait to show you this interview I did for the season 3 debut of the scene, and got some stuff lined up. Whether we execute it or not, time will tell. As we said last segment, proof's always in the details. Okay, let's do our segment where we opinionate, editorialize, talk a little trash. Closer look. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out, as some folks celebrated or made jokes about this week, the 6th anniversary of the passing of George Floyd. And obviously, this kind of coincides with our 6th birthday coming up. I mean, ours is since the Foxhole, 6 years. That happened in the summer. What's so interesting about George Floyd and how it pertains to this conversation, and I spoke earlier in the 43K view, as far as trying to get Congress to save the day. This all can be tied back to that period, and that particular day. We saw the unrest that were on campuses and the notion that we have to play at a time of a pandemic, why aren't we getting paid? And I think when people talk about, his legacy, I spoke about this, I think last week when I mentioned Mark Furman, his, weirdly enough, his passing. It's just so weird that these certain folks who, no different from the regular Joe Schmoes that we are, most of us are, end up changing history. I mean, and radically changing history. And I think in terms of George Floyd, society, on a societal level, what it's really done in the sports world, because it seems like from that period, more players are willing to have a voice, willing to have a platform, and say what's ever on their mind. So I think it's always going to fascinate me what that particular moment in time has spawned. I mean, go back and think about the bubble and how politicized that truly was. With all the messaging and whatnot that went on during that. For better or worse, I mean, I think it's in a lot of ways we're pivoting back to a sense of normalcy that existed before the pandemic and all the weird stuff. And there's a lot of things that led up to it. So let's not kid ourselves. I mean, obviously, the turmoil of the latter part of that decade, yeah, and some of the things that went down. And that's for somebody else's podcast to sort of break down in terms of importance. I mean, I think we know if we're talking about George Floyd, we know about the Ahmaud Arbery's. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the list goes on. Say their names. Yeah, we get it. But yeah, the tone in society and how sports is always a reflection of society. It is interesting, and a lot of this has gone on in the life of this podcast. I started my podcast in that right in that summer that this happened shortly after it, because I was at the time, as I've told you probably a million times, and you need to hear it another million times, but I was sick with long haul COVID, and for the safety of everybody, just couldn't be around people, and everybody else was locked in their own bubble. And this is why I started a weekly podcast out of sheer boredom. I just figured I got nobody to talk about this stuff with, and it's kind of spawned into this where we're doing video and exploring other avenues of production and things like that. I think, wow, that have even happened if we don't have this moment with George Floyd and all the things that sort of spawned, from that moment in time, which is, it is what it is. Another recurring theme. But there's so much truth into that. And I'm not sure 6 years later what to make of it. Especially if this thing with college can get kind of hammered down. I mean, I do feel like we might get a sense. We'll never have. I mean, the fact that people are still going to be making buckets of cash, not that they weren't before, but that it's so above the board and we're not biting an eyelash. That genie's out, and you can't expect this folks who pine for the days when this wasn't around. But I think other stuff will be in terms of the structure and the brand that we're familiar with. If somebody's played for 6 or 7 schools, or like I think about my girl HVL, who played for Louisville, LSU, and TCU, that's just not good for the public that wants to buy into this and wants to have traditions. You have to have a semblance that this is part of the institution and it's not some quasi professional, which it kind of is. But you got to give a semblance that it is part of the greater university body. And we've kind of gotten away from that. And that's always going to be what the hell are we doing? All right. I can ramble about that. I can do a whole podcast. Maybe I'll get a panel together and we will talk about where that moment in time and where it's leading and what it may mean for the future. I mean, it's something I might set up with some of the peeps. We'll see. Let's talk about something else here for a minute or two. Well, I just saw something really crazy last night. Two stars, the two-time MVP and the Ivory Queen that saved women's basketball, both lose. Both, I guess, how do you say, both of those losses generated a lot of commentary and criticism on the interwebs last night into today, as I was saying earlier. And I thought it was funny how you could put these two peas in the same pot. Because on the one hand, with SGA, he's kind of the superstar that we don't appreciate because he plays on such a good team, and the team has become unlikable because of their flopping and just their analytical approach to the game. It just rubs people the wrong way. But yet, he caught some slings. And this is, mind you, a game that could have put them back in the finals for the second straight year after they won it in 2025. But then that dwarf for that little white girl, Mawa, yeah, she did not have a great game. We get that. And because of the love and the hate, there's always going to be a big microscope anytime she doesn't score 35 and has a highlight reel. And you all act like, especially you folks who are strongly in her camp, you all act like people aren't competitors. Now, some of you are starting to kind of see it, but I don't think you do. Right? That the human part of this and the competitive part of it. And I don't know what goes on in the training sessions, practice, but clearly a team like the Valkyries, they came to play and had a pretty solid plan for being able to reduce the effectiveness of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. And I was impressed. And even in the end, they only won by 2. So let's not call it a master class. But I do feel like their coach definitely out X and O'd, what's her name? Stephanie White, for sure. Stephanie White, according to the Caitlin Clark apostles, you're right. The Antichrist's bride, as far as that's concerned. But it's just funny to me that it's a regular season game. People are all falling over themselves. But yet, when it comes to SGA, it's just like, yeah, I'm going to criticize him, but he's still a good player. I'm thinking the marbles are bigger. Why are we not coming down on this guy for having kind of a subpar game and a closeout where now you have to face Wimby one more time, but it'll be on your court. We all know anything can happen in a seventh game, especially when you got a guy who's 7'4" inside outside. Nonetheless, it's going to be some fun TV on both counts. Because obviously it's a game 7, but it looks to be the future of the league. And for my money at least, anytime Caitlin Clark takes the stage, there's going to be something. Whether she's at Indy talking for 2 seconds on NBC before an NBA game, going to a baseball game, the needle moves. And when she loses, the people who are ready to jump in front of the train. Okay, when we come back, we will close things out, get you out of here with the NFL report and some TMCA time. Because the trucks from the foundry are here. See you in a moment. All right, the wind is howling, knocking the doors around and everything. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole, episode 316. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, closing you out on a fabulous Friday. Watching what does they call this? The squeeze box? We've got a squeeze play. We've got multiple games from the regionals on in a multi-view. We're all for that. Yeah, it's mentioned that St. Mary's knocking off UCLA. What do I got over here? The Gauchos in one box. Looks like A&M in another. West Virginia and Northwestern. Oh, we got a quad box even. Tallahassee. So, groovy tunes there. All right, folks. We'll get you out of here with our TNR and TMCA segments. We'll start with the NFL report. Unfortunately, another somber one. Gonna be a little old school for this one, but if you are old school, you remember the legendary Manny Fernandez. I remember him far too well. Dominated my Redskins in Super Bowl VII in the Coliseum, which led to the Dolphins' undefeated season. Yeah, not too many of those cats left, unfortunately. But yeah, our condolences go out to his family, the Dolphin Nation, a beloved Dolphin. More not so pleasant news. Josh Jacobs, what are you doing? Now, the Foxhole, we are always careful when it comes to DV or SV with these athletes. But to give people the benefit of the doubt, as we found with celebrities, the truth is always stranger than what was ever thought to be the story. So it's just one of those things. But the early indications, we got somebody else being an S-bird. Come on, man. Come on, man. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt until we know more. I mean, I think we have to be fair in that regard, right? So, okay. Brian Flores. That Brian Flores gets the green light to go ahead with the lawsuit. Obviously, the NFL, for obvious reasons, kind of wanted this to stay on the arbiter level. Ain't going to happen. This is going to court. It's the NFL, man. Okay? So, I'm just going to grab my popcorn and go sit in the aisle and just watch this one play itself out. But I am curious, along with Chucky, who also got the green light, see if the NFL takes any hit point damage. You know, the Dungeons and Dragons thing. Man, what else we got this week? How about the pillow talk between JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray? You know, it was awkward listening to them both talk about the situation. And once again, you have to ask yourself about the adults in charge over there in Minneapolis. What are y'all doing? Why you got both of these guys in the building? Now, JJ, is he that much of a bust? And what we've seen from Kyler, there's some smoke, but there's never been much of a fire. I gotta ask myself, are you all trying to get into the sweepstakes? Because this is going to be a good quarterback class. You're all really trying to mess this up, and you being the Vikings, somehow, even a combination of the two of these guys, you'll somehow figure out a way to win 8 or 9 games and kind of become the Steelers of the NFC. Yeah. It's so awkward hearing them both talk about the current situation. And I'm sure Kyler's like, yeah, I think I got this. And JJ, who's still probably punch drunk, saying, really, I just got here. And you're all trying to put me into the dustbin of history. Wouldn't be surprised to see Harbaugh at some point, even though he's got good backups, figure out how to get this guy and maybe give him the instruction he needs to become a competent quarterback. You don't bring Kyler Murray in if you believe this guy is taking you places. Especially when you had Sam Darnold in the building and you let him walk. And now he's wearing the ring and you still haven't won one. And what is this going to be, your 66th or 67th season? Mm. A lot of OTAs going on. It's good to see that my man Justin Herbert and his influencer girlfriend are back after the concert over in Italy. Good to see JD5, Jaden Daniels, bopping around, talking with the media. Said last season left a bitter taste in his mouth. I'm like, no kidding. Try being a fan of this team since 1969. Yeah, better left a bitter taste in your mouth. And you got to make sure it never happens again. Yeah, Commander fan base, they're a mess right now. That horrible last year, even though I just think it's a weird illusion. It yeah, I think bitter taste in the mouth being nice for what many Commanders fans felt after being in the NFC Championship team and thinking they were legit contenders. Then you go 5-12. Bad taste in your mouth. Okay, let's move on from that. Rabes, my man Mike Vrabel met the media. Both parties, what the story that has so much legs, it's just become a wet firecracker. I love Jen. Okay, and Diana loves her man, Rich Boy. We got it. You guys have a twinkle in your eye, but everybody's going on their merry way. Vrabes said the right things. So, unless this is a case of Will Levis, where they can hack into the phone if they were being that freaky. I mean, what could you come up with that's going to put Mike Vrabel in a situation where you have to dismiss him? I mean, I may have some impact as far as the Patriots being able to obtain AJ Brown, something big like that in the short term. But I don't see. Yeah, and I think there's plenty of weird avenues for Diana to pursue too. Once this dies down, or gee, you can just go sit at home. After all, you're mad if he isn't kicking you to the curb. He has got deep pockets, so I mean, gee, worst things. If you get to be a kept woman that can basically do whatever the f you want to do, so you tell me. Mm. Good to see Lamar showing up with his peeps, confessing his love to Baltimore as far as the second phase of OTAs is concerned. Like that he's showing commitment to Baltimore. He said, hey, man, they drafted me, man. Plus, you got that Harbaugh out of here. Maybe we can do something up in this bitch now. I know, pardon my language, but that's what I got the sense as far as where Lamar is. And I'm all right with that. I really am. Glad that he's back. It is voluntary, right? But it's good to make your presence known, especially when you are ushering in a new regime. It's one that you had input on bringing in. So good for you, LJ. How about Von Miller walking around? He was with my Commanders, but he's got the Peter Cup. Basically, come on. He's looking at Sean Payton, and obviously he had success in Denver when during his time there, making it happen. But yeah, he'd like to hop on the gravy train, try to steal another ring. I'm pretty sure they're gonna go youth in Washington. There's not a spot. There shouldn't be based on what we saw last year. I don't know how sentimental Sean Payton will be either, but we'll be keeping an eye on that one for sure. Hmm. This is interesting too, what I saw earlier this week. So we've been talking about stadium constructions, or soon to be, all over the league. This is one of the things we keep an eye on. This whole thing with the Bears. Now, I don't know what to believe because the narrative seems to change every 5 minutes. But I guess the folks in Chicago proper say they've exhausted all avenues as far as keeping the Bears within the city. So does that mean Arlington Heights or that spot out there by Gary, Indiana, or wherever it is? Wow. I know you get politics involved, and that's why I'm really curious about the whole bipartisan bill to save college sports. You get politicians involved with this, especially when you're, states. It's always going to get messy, and yeah, I'm curious to see who's who's pulling the wool over our eyes and where. Figure it out, right? The sooner you get the sooner you start building a new stadium, the quicker you're going to realize your dreams. Not that Soldier's a bad place, I mean, at least I don't go there, but it's serviceable while you're figuring it out, as opposed to that dump the Commanders play out and then land over where it's like, y'all need to get the shovels in the ground now. But that isn't going to happen 2030, 2031 until that's going to be done. But man, it's going to look nice when it is, though. Speaking of nice, how about the Cronkies? Standing as kids fighting with the city of Inglewood. Basically, they're just saying, we built this complex, this incredible complex that can host World Cup events, can have Shakira, T Sizzle, BTL, or whatever it's called. You kidding me? You better cough up the $400 million in infrastructure and improvements, access that we put into this. And this time, in these weird times, of course, the city of Inglewood's trying to find a way. Like, well, we shouldn't have to pay for this. I'm thinking y'all are making a hit. Yeah, okay. I mean, 400 mil is 400 mil, so I might tell the Cronkies not to, back away from that. I mean, I don't know in terms of the health of the city of Inglewood. I would think with all those major complexes, they are on hard times. But what do I know? You know what's up with Inglewood? FTAFX@gmail.com. Or give me a call, 541-525-0896 on my hotline. Leave me a message and tell me what's up there. Yeah, because that 400, I mean, that's only 100 million short of half a billion. So Cronky's like, yeah, Ken, I'm I'm going to the mats for this one. Mm. How about this one? Three-leg Greg. Three-leg Greg. Mm-hmm. Greg Olson beating out Tom Brady, TB12, for the best analyst. Yes, I guess of the sports Emmys. Who- Who's who's watching the hen house there when it comes to determining any of these, whether it's regional or national. When it comes to journalism, I just go, okay. But still, I think it's good for three-leg Greg, who has been pretty impressive and been very graceful, even getting pushed back to the number two chair or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, enjoy I enjoy watching games that he's on, and also when he comes on these programs and drops it meaningful analysis about the college and football game. After all, pro game, I should say. After all, he did go to the U. All right, man. The trucks are here from the foundry. Oh yeah, on this wet Friday, the TGIF stickers on the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties. You know the drill. They come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes. and these stainless steel bowls containing the smelliest of varieties. They're for the people whose actions during the week have earned that distinction, or as we always love to say, them being who they be. It's TMCA time in the Foxhole. So we started off with, we're going to give Abdul Carter three XLs. Got one for your narcissistic silliness, knowing it was going to wrinkle up the culture when you didn't need to. Still going to give two for not showing up to the meeting where Dart had, which he didn't have to do. I kind of feel silly that he did, but he did. And you weren't even there and you caused this controversy. Nah, man. You got a third one still because the tone deafness that asked the great Lawrence Taylor, can I have 56? Yeah, you might get one annually for that as long as you're playing. Brah. I'm going to give another three XLs to Kendrick Perkins, trying to go thug life at his son's AAU game. And then coming up with some explanation. I'm just like, wow, man. And you thought the Warren report was unbelievable. Oh man, yeah. I'm going to give an honorable mention here because I don't have the details. We may give out awards. Just got a rare honorable mention to White Chocolate, Jason Williams, getting kicked out of his daughter's softball game. I think she plays for the Gators. I don't have all the details because maybe people were throwing stuff at her or he was throwing something. But I'm like, dude, you guys can't be getting kicked out of. Yeah, that's an honorable mention until we get more information. Um, Complimentaries all around, and I'm gonna say five XLs for the Hall of Shame for all the S birds of the View, the San Jose Mercury News, who called Dart's actions meeting with our president as a misstep. What the F are we doing here? I don't care what side of the equation you're on. Still are America, and whether you like your president or hate your president, this idea of somebody meeting with him and that's a misstep. Come on, be better, journalists. Oh man, and I'm gonna give more awards out. I'm gonna give an XL each to like Acho, Jamel Hill, especially. Kerry Champion, you get an XL. I mean, any of you folks that spoke out, we may have to go back to the foundry and make some more XLs up. But if you called out Jackson Dart for our standing and what he believes in, maybe something that he endorses may be odious to you, but you don't have stuff that other people would have odious as far as what you're pumping. Stop it with this BS already. It's like childish, man. Come on. I gotta give. I'm gonna give him an XL. I'm gonna give Whitlock and his simping for Caitlin Clark. I mean, I get the other guys who built a nice brand and following, following the trajectory of her career. Obviously, clear they're very vested because they've gotten a lot of followers out of it. But there's no reason for. I mean, it's just simping you do for Caitlin Clark is just ridiculous. When you tried to bring some sanity to the conversation today, but since you were dressed like Ozzy, a bad Ozzy, I mean, Ozzy, you couldn't look that bad even if you had ate 3 bats. Come on, man. Come on, man. I'm gonna give a regular. I don't think she deserves an X. I'm gonna give a regular It's rare these days now. It's regular or complimentary, but a regular for Mina Kimes. Big week for her, obviously, winning Celebrity Jeopardy and all this other stuff. Then she has to ruin it with her top 10 quarterback list, which has uh, Patrick Mahomes coming off injury at 1 and the reigning MVP, Matthew Stafford, at 10. Yeah, make that one make sense. Just when you want to give her credit, it's just like, yeah, okay, and this is why the misogynists have their moment. I'll just leave it at that. I think I'm just gonna give it XL because I just saw another piece. It might have been old, but I don't think it was. But Floyd Merriweather, and this basically like hanger that has all of his cars. He's like showing his Maybach, and you sit there and hear the financial woe is me, where he's got to fight Pacquiao again, and I'm just thinking, man. I mean, I know if you get an endless pot of money, you can find ways to spend it. You can find, there's going to be people that find ways to take it from you. But I just go, good grief. Yeah. This world we live in. But yeah, that's worth an XL. I'm going to this is 2 XLs for me. Okay, this might be harsh for some of y'all because he's already suffered the pain of having to be Cancuned, especially getting swept. But come on, James Harden. Saying you were the better team after getting swept. I mentioned this the other day. There could be some times where the better team may have gotten swept. Clearly, this ain't one of them. Come on, man. Put that dispo weed down for a minute, bro. Get out of the strip club and get some sun. Man, I'm gonna give another XL, and this woman is starting to collectors. Joy Taylor. I mean, getting deeper in the desperation lane. Anything to get some kind of engagement. We're talking about men should have to go through getting pregnant. Can we make it possible for men to get pregnant so they would understand? Joy, 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 joy. Come on, girl. I'm going to give an XL to Kelly Stafford. Speaking of Matthew Stafford, my goodness. Always proving why some wags should stay in the shadows. Every time she opens her mouth, she becomes more annoying. Oh, boy. Lastly, complimentaries all around. And we'll just go 2 XLs. No, make it 5. This is a 5 strip. But the culture and this takeover mob phenomenon. I mean, we did some stupid ass shit, as General Andre would say in my day, and so do most of y'all. But this content for everything, and on top of it, stupidity rising above anything. Come on, man. Once again, another hard one of these. What the F are we doing? Wow. Okay. We somehow got to the finish line of episode 316. Keep an eye out for Aftershocks 047, which will be in the pot. Who knows how soon it's going to come. Gonna try to get the Scene 3-1 out sometime this weekend. I got some great people who have tentatively said they want to come in the Foxhole, or the Foxhole will come to them. Come to them. So stay tuned. As always, enjoy some adult beverages and some great meals as we get near the summer season with the people that matter. Stay safe, stay sane. Always avoid the bracelets. Till we meet again. Peace out, y'all.